Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, September 24th, and this is virtual lunch number 398. Sirisha Gummaregula is our guest. She is the Chief Operating Officer for QuisLex, and this is part of our continuing series on the future of law. Hi, how you doing?
Doing very well, Ari, and thank you for having me here today.
It's my privilege, and we're excited to connect. So let's start. Tell us a little bit about your background and your role at QuisLex.
Well, I'm a lawyer by background. I started off as an M&A lawyer at Sherman and Sterling, so doing deals. In a lot of ways, it's not just the deals. What I really enjoyed is trying to make sure that people with completely opposite views across the table are able to find a middle ground. And that's what I found exciting in the M&A area that I was involved in. And in fact, I specialized in hostile M&A. The fact that I was focusing on hostile M&A was always a joke among our friends. Then I moved in-house to Quest Diagnostics, who was a client, and I did their last 5 deals and got to know their senior management really well and the CEO. So they wanted me to come in as a deputy GC and a corporate secretary function, because at that time the SOX regulations just started. And in addition to my M&A expertise, my board advisory role was about how to deal with SOX. And so it was a great fit. I did both their BD function as well as corporate secretary function. I was made responsible for the Six Sigma group, and I still joke with Mike. It was only done because I was the newest guy in the department and I had no idea what I was signing up for. It was eye-opening to be exposed to such a data-driven process field. I realized through both my earlier jobs that what I really wanted to do was take risk. And by that, I mean really make decisions for which I am solely responsible. When I did my M&A role, I was doing the deals, but then once the deal got done, I had to move out. I didn't know how it ended up. And I moved in-house so that there was more continuity. I was responsible for the deals that I was bringing in, and that was a fantastic experience. I'm fascinated by legal industry. You take any other business, how do they do that? How do they remain profitable? How do they remain impervious to change that's happening around the world? It was the world of being bound by precedents to can we really break that apart? I guess I could have taken any other business. Actually at Quest, I was on the succession path for 2 really independent roles. I was on the succession path for the GC, which I was hired for. But after I joined, they put me on a succession path for the chief of staff to the CEO. Can I come up with a newer idea and do something different? So I chose an area that I was very familiar with. If you really need to break something and come up with a new process, you really need to master that process first. At that point of a time, I thought I really knew the perspective of how a law firm is run, how in-house legal departments are run. India had such a great ecosystem. During those years, it was outsourcing was the norm. It was first technology, then it was certain basic processes, then KPOs. So the more that I was plugged into the ecosystem, said, okay, here is now a very different way of approaching building these systems and processes that the industries earlier. So moving into a legal process outsourcing where you provide the same sophisticated legal analysis or legal services through a combination of people, process, technology, right? I mean, this was a revolutionary idea. In the e-discovery space, the coolest technology at that point of a time was concordance. And now we are in the world of brain space and analytics. And in a similar way, you look at every service line that we provide, the way that we have incorporated technology and the way that we brought in the process discipline, that you can't really solve a problem or really provide a service without really breaking down the entire process. So this mindset and the freedom to break rules, I really didn't think existed either in-house or outside counsel. And so that's why taking the less trodden path of building something yourself was the way to go. When we first started talking to clients, there was so much of resistance from law firms, from everybody else. And the fact that we were able to convince clients to trust us, to send their data across the world, to be able to say that, hey, this organization can give me the same quality of services with a higher data security than what I would get in the US was a leap of faith. So we are getting this large selection of ideas and problems that you're beginning to solve. And you're not only taking this idea that has never been done and trying to execute it, but execute it in a very measured manner. So certainly the big focus on legal tech is certainly a trend that we are seeing. But at the same time, what people forget is it is an entire service. And where the technology plays is a smaller part. And to a certain extent, there is confusion in the marketplace as some of these technology solutions are being touted as solving world hunger. And that makes our job really difficult. When we are going in and we are saying that technology does help, but there are limitations, but we may be falling below expectations. So we see some of that, and we try to really do a good job of educating our clients on what is the best way to use that, and where do I see the industry going? The legal industry per se is moving from a very specialized advice to holistic advice. So you have a set number of terms in an agreement that you're analyzing in the context of a deal, and you're trying to tell the client that, are there any issues that you're assuming? The biggest change that we are seeing is that it's not just about those contracts. You need to then look at it and say that, do I have agreements with the same people? Do I have negotiating leverage? Even though this contract may be bad, is this a risk that we have never taken before? And that now suddenly it's a newer business. So there are all these additional data points that are outside of those contracts, outside of those analysis that you're doing, that you need to connect the dots. And that's when it becomes business intelligence. We were very regimented in using data analytics. And even to date, the metric that we put in place, the tracking that we put in place for the entire organization, we know how many employees are either COVID positive, family members living with them, and we broke them into really different groups based on regions so that we are creating the support system for them. So the initial thing was survival, but very quickly we realized that there is a huge advantage to now going remote. Going back to what fascinated me about making the move is coming up with a completely different process. What is the advantage of this, and how do you take these workflows and execute in this remote environment? And we found that some of the things that we take for granted when you're in the office, that, hey, it is all getting executed, we have a sense of control, but perhaps not as much of control that you may have. The huge toll as a leader, and for all of my leaders in the organization, was, are you able to provide the right support to your employees? And that's a question I still ask myself. I hope that history will judge us well for the things that we have done, because there is no set answer. There is no precedent here. We are doing things with the best belief that these are going to work out. To be able to give my leaders the ability for them to say that, take risks. Your decision may not be right, but that's okay. That's a risk we are willing to take. But we ought to be able to be nimble, agile, that we are reacting, rather than really be fearful of, we haven't done this before, and can it expose us to a lot of risk? So one of the analysis that we started collecting on a weekly basis is sentiment analysis across our organization. As part of our general HR things, they would have done on a quarterly basis, but we started doing it on a weekly basis during the pandemic so that we have a quick litmus test on what are we sensing across the organization.
Sirisha Gummaregula, everybody. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to QuisLex for supporting this series on the future of law. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone.